Welcome to Shades of Us. I'm your host, Daryl Brown. It is said that sports bring people together. No place is that more apparent than in New York City, which is considered the mecca for many well-known sports such as basketball, baseball, and tennis. On this episode, we'll be exploring a few games that may not be in the big leagues, but are in a league of their own in communities around the city. Skelly, Kick the Can, Hopscotch, and Double Dutch are all street games that have been played for years. But one of New York City's most popular street games is stickball.
When I think about Stickball Boulevard, I think of it as being my second home. When I come here every Sunday, it's like a relief.
Sometimes at night, I don't live too far from here, that I'll come out here and I'll just walk around like this is where I grew up, so it's a second home.
My name is David Hernandez, and my hobby is playing stickball.
My name is Skylar John Mercado, and I am on the board for the New York Emperor Stickball League.
Stickball is basically a poor man's baseball, but it's played without any gloves and a stick. You don't need much money to get it started.
Stickball to New York City would probably be a huge part of its city tradition. It started here, it developed here, it grew here since the 40s.
Stickball used to bring races together. Things back in the day were separated by gangs, and the gangs were basically split up into racial, divisions. You had the Italians, you had the Latinos, you had the blacks. But during games, it used to bring, different races together. And I think that still rings true. So this street used to be named Newman Ave. And then back when Mayor Koch was in office, we got it amended to be called Stickball Boulevard. And they chose this location because it was kind of like desolate and they weren't getting bothered. And they decided to create a league. The New York Emperors League started in the mid-'80s.
My grandfather was one of the founding fathers of our league here in the Bronx. My dad and my grandfather are the ones that brought me to the game.
That's my guy, that's Skylar.
Listening on what you guys
First Olympic stickball player in the United States. Someday.
My father is Steve Mercado, and he was a fireman at Engine 40, Ladder 35. That day, September 11th, I do remember it very vividly. The office had called down and said that my mom was here to pick me up, and she picked myself up, and we went to go pick up my brother as well from daycare. She seemed like she was in a panic, and she said that America was being attacked, and I asked if my dad was down there, and she said yes. So I remember being excited. I really do. I thought my dad was Superman, so I thought that he was going to take care of this problem and, come back to us, and we'll live the rest of our lives, but that didn't end up happening, so. This is my dad's poem that he created for my grandfather, and the impact that my grandfather had on him in terms of bringing him into stickball and what he wants for my brother and I.
I know he's looking down upon us right now, and he's very proud of you and Austin. I knew him for only a year before he passed. As soon as I got introduced to the New York Emperor Stickball League, he opened up his doors to me, my family. The team that we have is full of a bunch of kids that I consider my nephews. But Skylar and Austin, they really hold something special in my heart and in my family's heart.
Love you. Likewise, love you too.
Stickball builds communities, but most importantly, it builds character within the younger youth. My two boys, they're playing stickball now. It helped build my relationship with them, and it keeps the kids off the street.
I love, I would say, stickball because I feel like it builds more of a family than baseball. And like, if I don't have baseball, I have stickball. So like, it just keeps me motivated.
Personally, I have a 5-year-old son that's playing this game. I see this game going to the Olympics. It's my dream, but only with my support.
My dad wanted this to be an Olympic sport, and that is the end goal for my vision as well. But I know there are many, many, many steps to get there. So even if I don't get it to that point, I can leave it off to somebody who I know will keep going until it does get to that point. Trying to toe that line of carrying on my father's legacy and building my own, it's definitely tough. I believe that I can carry on in the way that he did, while also building off of that and taking it to, like I said, another level. The season starts for the New York Emperor Stickball League in early April, the first weekend in April. We always play on Sundays from 9 to 3, and the season ends for our league in the first week of August. Anybody can come out, you can watch. If you want to play, there's a deadline for our league, for our rosters, but anybody can come and try. We're more than welcome. You can contact us at NY Stickball on Instagram and nystickball.com.
It's a real street game that survived the test of time. And that's our mission, to, still keep it going and teach it to our kids. They'll teach it to their kids, and it'll just keep going and growing.
Luck is flow and force. There's no power that can fully take that into account. Fate is still wavering. Mahjong has become such a popular game around the world that August 1st has been dedicated International Mahjong Day. We discovered how the ancient Tao game is becoming more popular these days as it shakes off old stereotypes and connects to new generations.
My dad, he was in Boston on a college trip. He saw out of the corner of his eye someone who looked like someone from his mother's Mahjong group and said, "You look familiar." Their own parents used to play Mahjong with each other in Malaysia. So that only could have been made possible because Mahjong created the community that allowed my dad to recognize my mom in Boston, thousands of miles away from where they grew up. Hi, my name is Joshua Kwan. I live in Jackson Heights, Queens. I've been playing Mahjong for 20 years, and I'm a member of the Richinomi NYC Mahjong Club here in New York. Traditionally, I would say that Mahjong was considered sort of a fuddy-duddy game where, the old people would play and the young people didn't really understand it, or played it only at the behest of their extended family. I think that's changing. I'm probably one of the oldest people in the club. I'm 35 years old, which I think most people wouldn't think is that old, but I feel definitely very old in the club. I would say most players are somewhere between like 23 and 28 years old. I would say that there's kind of an even split for our club of people not from Asian backgrounds who got into it via the anime and manga route. And there's sort of a plurality of Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and Filipino players, again, of the same age group, but I think they have a little more of a family connection.
There is a Hokkien phrase, kakilang. It means our own kind of people. And you're not our own kind.
The creators of Crazy Rich Asians used Mahjong to illustrate the dynamic between that daughter-in-law character and the mother-in-law character, because the daughter-in-law actually intentionally plays a tile that lets the mother-in-law win. It was one of those, I know, I'm intentionally giving you this tile, and that's quote-unquote what a daughter-in-law should do. I would say in the club setting, I would say it's more of a community, and it's much broader scope, obviously. It's not just your family, and you would go there, you would perhaps bring your friends into the club, but you would also make friends via the club. And I think it's interesting. Some people are really there only to play, and some people are really there to have fun and make friends. Because Mahjong is becoming more popular amongst young people, it's seen as a way to like socialize in a hip way and find other people like you in a phase of your life where you're really looking to branch out and make friends in different ways than you used to. Our generation is realizing that, having grown up in a generation when the internet has always been there, to find physicality in societal interactions, I think has become a priority, especially after the pandemic. So I would say that in our generation, we are beginning to look more for what has been called in sociology like the third space. In previous generations, that may have been like a pub or like a dance hall or something like that. And I'm sure dance halls still exist, but for some people in our generation, Mahjong hits that note of, let's get together and do something and meet people face to face. And I would say that even outside of Mahjong, I think you're seeing the same thing with board game groups as well. There's people who gather in coffee shops and bars to meet other people and play board games, and so I think Mahjong fits very nicely into that. So I'm a software developer by day, and actually many people in our club are in tech in some way or another, or working in technical fields such as the life sciences and mathematics. I would say that Mahjong really attracts a personality type that is embracing and curious to learn about complex systems. And so you can see how that applies to software, how that applies to the life sciences, and et cetera. And so there is sort of a plurality of highly technical people who get into Mahjong, and it's just another system for us to embrace, to learn, to get the wonder of learning and mastering to whatever degree that we can. So partially, Mahjong is a game of chance. When we start the game, we're going to get 13 random tiles from the wall. We don't know what they are, and they may be close to a shape where you can win, or it may be very, very far indeed, and you may realistically have no hope of winning against the 3 other people. A lot of my mindset of playing Mahjong, and I think what's being popularized in the Riichi playing community, is that as long as you do the best you can with the information that you have available to you, which is the tiles that you have, what you see out on the board with other people's plays, then you have done your very best. And even if that results in a losing result, that still means you played well. And so I think that for me and for many other people, Mahjong inspires a bit of stoicism where, you don't let yourself get emotionally wrapped up in the outcome of a single hand. Mahjong plays a role in every family or different group of friends. I would love to teach my daughter to play eventually when she's of an age to actually realize what's going on. And I hope to impart some of those lessons where you are in control of you accept that you're only in control of a small piece of the puzzle, and if you do your best within your level of control, you have nothing to be ashamed of. I think that's a great lesson that anyone learning Mahjong could learn for themselves. And I think because I have such a personal connection in my family to Mahjong, I really want to pass that down, right? So even if my daughter grows up and sees it as, oh, that's the game that the old people play when there's they have their friends over or their family over, that would still be fine. I think that would still be Mahjong featuring in the life and me representing my culture and where I came from to the next generation.
We'll be back after this break. It's summer, and if you walk around the city, you'll notice more and more people smashing searing serves, positioning for returns, and diving for diverted balls. But this is not tennis. It's another sport that's become very popular in the city. It's handball, or more specifically, wall ball. We found out some more about this uniquely New York version of the game.
Summer in the city is handball season. As the heat rises, so does the competition between players from across the boroughs.
Hi, my name is Stan, and I'm a handball player. Handball is part of New York culture because I believe that for me, it bonds people together. Culturally, it's great. Well, I started playing handball, and I realized it was a competitive sport. I like competition, and I mean, there's some great players out there.
I'm Paul Williams. I'm the founder of the Inner City Handball Association. And I am been involved with handball for probably 50 years as a player and as an administrator. The components of handball consist of a wall, depending on whether you're playing 1 wall, 3 wall, 4 wall. Those are the 3 forms of handball. Has a ball, usually 2 to 4 players play it. And then you have boundary lines where points are scored based on the playing of the game. It's a game that's been around for hundreds of years in many different cultures. It's been around in South America. They have a game called pelota. We have the Irish handball, which is the oldest organized handball, which they usually use a 60 by 30 outdoor court or 4-wall court. And then you have the United States handball, which is 40 by 20, which was basically adopted by worldwide handball federations. New York City was the home of 2,000 handball courts, New York City and Long Island. So it just became something that's just natural to, if you were in New York, you had to play handball. You saw a handball court. You could go every 10 blocks, you'd see a court. If it wasn't for Robert Moses, that may not have ever happened. Robert Moses was park commissioner from 1935 to 1960. And that's when the creation of parks in New York City and the creation of handball courts really were created. He had a vision of what he wanted to have, as far as parks and recreational spaces. And even though some people may differ from what they believe, was his intent, it worked out well for handball players because we have the 2,000 courts, and a lot of them are still here. Some of them are being torn down. Wall ball developed in New York City as that sport is really a sport that's played with the big blue ball. Which is a racquetball. It became wall ball because inclusion into the Olympics. Before then, there was 1-wall handball with a pink ball. And that's the Spalding Corporation had a pink ball, as some people call Pensy Pinky. And that was what handball was played with for a long time in the streets of New York. Gradually, to replace the pink ball, that's when we used the racquetball. And that's where handball then took the turn because the younger generation wanted to get into it. And you had another form of handball, which is using a black ball. It's a small, harder ball. Most people consider it more a professional ball, even though in handball there's really no real profession because you don't make the prize money that an NBA star or a baseball player or a football player would make. We do have a pro tour, but it's nothing like the pros that you would think they sustain a livelihood playing the sport of handball.
My name is Emerald Roberts, and I'm a handball player. I think handball is a huge part of New York culture because basically people play it everywhere. Like before I even knew about it, I would go around and ask about it, and it seemed like everybody just knew. It's just one of the secret wonders of New York City. I used to just lean on the gate and just watch people play, and it always it was so fascinating to me. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna learn how to play that. I'm gonna learn how to play that one day. And it's a shame that it's not like a bigger sport, or broadcasted on television, because it felt like it's just so much fun. It keeps you in shape. It's like kids can play it, grown-ups, no matter what age, doesn't discriminate. Everybody just get together, just have fun, and just play the best sport. I mean, I'm in love. I play it all the time, so.
My name is Kennedy Walker, and I'm a handball player. I got into handball when COVID started because my dad plays. My dad definitely inspired me to play handball because he didn't want me stuck inside the house during COVID, so I would come with him to the park. And instead of just watching, I decided to hit the ball. And then ever since then, I've always loved the sport. I feel like it's nice to get to know people my age who play handball so we can grow together.
It's very important for me to give handball back to the community because every time I throw a tournament, somebody in this community walks by and goes, "This a handball tournament?" So people are still not aware. My name is Veronica Figueroa, and I am the president and co-founder of St. John's Wall Ball Association. So growing up here in New York City, I started playing handball in 1983 in this park, St. John's Handball, 'cause I lived across the street. My first handball competition was in Queens. I played in Queen of the Court. It was really interesting because I enjoyed the fact that it was a women's event. When I went to Queen of the Court, I knew some of the players, but I didn't know the history of handball. I predominantly played one-wall handball. When you go over someplace like California and you see 3 walls outside, like how you see the one wall, their courts are all 3 wall outside, and they're huge. And I played in one pro 3 wall tournament in Las Vegas, and it was very difficult because in 3 wall, you're not allowed to take position and stand there and let the person work around. You have to move out of their way, otherwise it's a point for them because you didn't move. One wall, you could stand in front of them and stay in position, and you don't have to move. So 3 wall is a little difficult, and they'll tell you that also. Playing one wall for them is hard because they moving all over the place, and when you're playing one wall, you go into a tournament, you keep moving person shot, you're down, it's a point. So it was very difficult. The games overseas is different because they don't play for money. That's the only difference. They play just as hard as the people here in New York City. They give it their all. They love the game. They go all out. They actually learn from us, and a lot of them are very good. Every country I went to, they always treated me with respect. I learned about other cultures going to play handball. I learned about different foods, while I was in those countries. I did sightseeing, so I learned a lot, meaning that I probably would never have went to none of them countries if it wasn't for handball. The reason I started throwing tournaments, which was in 2003, was because there was no handball tournaments in Brooklyn. So at that time, I had created an organization, Lincoln Terrace Handball Association, which is now called St. John's Wallball Association. So recently I had a juniors tournament, ages 12 to 18. The event took place May 6th at St. John's Park. It was a great event. I had 60 children. They did singles and doubles. They were so excited about their medals and their t-shirts. So that tournament went very well. When I'm set up a tournament, my message is, what would I want as a player? I went to a tournament, how would I want it set up? So I do everything I can to give them the best of something that I would want that I probably never experienced to get from a tournament. I give it to the players. I feel 100% I've made an impact in handball, and I'm still making an impact in handball.
Years ago, handball was in so many different communities that it was very reflective of that community. Now it's a little bit different because the communities are really diverse, and because of electronics, a lot of kids don't go to the park as much. I run tournaments because now I try and get those young people from all areas of the city, because I played in all areas of the city, to be able to have the best come to a location and compete. Handball doesn't get corporate funding like any other sports because we don't have equipment. So what ends up happening is that we have to fund it ourselves, so that limits our ability to go and outreach in different communities. My organization, the City Handball Association, we run 9 major tournaments each year. But if we had funding, really, we can have 9 tournaments or 10 tournaments, but then have maybe 25, 50 clinics to be able to go outreach to different neighborhoods. It's so sad. I grew up in Bed-Stuy, and so we have Boys and Girls High no longer has a handball team. They have a handball court in their backyard. I used to do training with the kids there, and some of their kids actually were part of my travel group years ago. But now, no one uses the court. They don't even have a team to compete in the PSAL. A lot of the schools here in Brooklyn, they broke it up into so many different segments that you don't no longer have those teams. What makes it difficult to spread it is lack of funding. Every time I go into a neighborhood, oh yeah, we used to play handball. I used to see people come out and they try and hit the ball, the older people, and then the younger kids are like, oh, I can do this, and they start playing, they enjoy it. And they say, so how come you don't play? Well, no one's out here to teach us. That's the one thing we have to try and fix. Getting into those neighborhoods and fixing it.
According to a 2022 study on health benefits of American handball is a fast-paced racket sport that offers numerous health benefits for players, which include physical fitness, mental health, hand-eye coordination, social interaction, and stress relief.
That's our show. If you want to know more about the guests we featured, check out our Instagram page at Shades of Us TV and online at tv.cuny.edu. I'm Darryl Brown. See you next time on Shades of Us.
Sports.